Good morning, Mike.
Morning, Dave.
Well, obviously, you and your organization have got to be pretty delighted with what you got out of the Supremes yesterday.
Oh, I think it was a pretty good decision. It affirmed the lower court. That opinion written by Judge Silberman was very good.
All right, let's talk for a second about now the possibility of some of these lawsuits. I guess the NRA is going to file some suits in Chicago and San Francisco and some other cities with stricter gun laws. What is your goal here, Mike, as far and those who are in favor of looser gun laws? What do you want?
Well, most of gun laws aren't going to be struck down by constitutional scrutiny, Dave. And what you have in Chicago, yesterday, 15 minutes after Justice Scalia announced his opinion, Alan Gura, the lead counsel in that case, filed suit in Chicago to strike down their similar ban on merely owning a garden variety all-American handgun in your home.
Mike, do you believe there should be any kind of gun control in the country at all?
I believe that most gun control regulations are going to stand up to constitutional scrutiny, even under this opinion. But as a policy matter, no, I don't think gun control does anything except to make it harder to be a gun owner. I think criminals will still get their guns.
Let's talk for a second about what OpenCarry.org believes in. I saw your Nightline story on you all. The idea basically is you believe that anybody who has a firearm or a handgun should be able to openly carry them. Is that it?
Well, it's not just us. It's the legislatures of 44 states and not, unfortunately, Florida. In most states, you can open carry a handgun without any license. And you could do that in Florida, too, until about 1987.
Now, why without any license? Wouldn't you prefer that the gun owner be licensed?
Well, what kind of constitutional right requires a license? I mean, a newspaper doesn't need a license to have a newspaper. We don't need a license to exercise our Fourth Amendment rights. Open carry is the basic right. Now, concealed carry, that's something that probably needs some reasonable regulation because we know that's where criminality arises.
But if you say, but by the way, we need licenses for radio and television. You know that. Now, let me ask you this then: if you're saying anybody shouldn't have a license, what about somebody with a criminal record?
Well, if you have a record so bad, a felony conviction that the court's already said is going to be a gun disabler, the police can investigate you, and once they have probable cause, arrest you for violating that prohibition, just like any other law.
Now, Mike, in the Nightline story, which was based out of Newport News, Virginia, they went to the Newport News police, ABC did, and they couldn't get them to comment on it. What do you hear from law enforcement about about OpenCarry.org and what they feel about it?
Well, in terms of open carry, where it's become popular in places like Virginia, Pennsylvania, Washington State, law enforcement gets used to it and recognizes, like a recent FBI report, that criminals use concealed handguns, and essentially bad guys don't open carry. And Dave, while we're on it, on the front of OpenCarry.org, your listeners can tap into these articles you're talking about, including an online petition to restore the right of open carry in Florida.
Is this more of a self-defense issue, do you say here, Mike, or is it a constitutional issue to you and your followers?
I think it's both. Open carry is the base core constitutional right, and additionally, it certainly is rooted in the right of self-defense.
Now, you know, there may be people out there who completely agree with you. There are others who are shaking their heads saying, look, we think this is going to take us back to the 1850s and, Wyoming and people just walking around shooting each other. I know you don't advocate that, but do you understand that point of view that some people might be frightened by this?
Well, they might be, but they ought to travel to most of the country, places like Pittsburgh and Seattle, where you can be sipping a latte in Starbucks, open carrying your semi-automatic, and there's no problem. It goes on every day.
Well, I haven't seen it, but I got to admit, it might make me a little bit uncomfortable. I didn't grow up around guns, so I'm not as comfortable around them as other people are. And I just wonder what the reaction would be if you managed to get this around the country from people who maybe aren't as into the gun culture as you are.
Well, like I say, we only got six states to go, Dave. And in the states where it is legal and people do carry, I've open carried in many states, generally people either don't notice, don't react, or if they do, it's a positive encounter. It's like, hey, do I need a permit for that? How do I do that? And then you get to strike up a nice, friendly conversation.
So I want to make sure I get this again. You're for the carrying openly of the handguns.
Right.
Without any kind of restrictions. In other words, no one has to be licensed. No one has to go through background checks. None of that.
Well, Dave, that's a choice for your legislature to make. What I'm saying is that the facts on the ground are in most states You don't need a license, and we don't have a problem. You don't need a license to own a gun in Florida. You don't need a license to carry one in your car in your glove box. So I don't think it's a big leap of faith to think that you can trust your own residents, like most states, to open carry, like to and from the grocery store.
All right, Mike, I appreciate you clearing that up. Make sure we got that 100% straight so we don't misrepresent either side in the story. Thank you so much.
Sure.